And meanwhile, I think we can start because, we don't want people to be delayed and people in the session and next sessions also to have this room taken. So, we're very excited to have people in the audience, even though we can't see you. We assume there are people out there listening to us. We think this is as Germán mentioned, this is a very important event. Overall, in this session, we'll explore, or in this Diaspora Roundtable, we will explore strategies and ideas to how to build partnerships for change making at home and back home. Myself, I'm part of Ashoka, and together with Roberto at the International Organization for Migration, we are hosting this session with Fundación Por Causa, the organizers of the whole event, and thank you to Por Causa for this opportunity. I'd like to mention very briefly who we have with us. We have Roberto Cancel, who is a regional specialist on labor mobility. Regional specialist on labor mobility and human development for the region of South America at the International Organization for Migration. We have Professor Grace Obado, who is the president of Africa 2.0, a very important African diaspora organization. And she's also an associate professor at IE University in Madrid. We also have Peter, who I'm hoping we can fix his issues with the link, and he can join us. Peter Kwok is the chairman and founder of the UK Federation of Chinese Professionals, and he's also the chairman of the Global Diaspora Confederation. So I'll give the floor to Roberto for some welcoming remarks as well.
Thank you very much, Asier. Just want to reiterate, as Asier mentioned, the importance of this event for us as one in many that we've been organizing in collaboration with Ashoka and other partners to really highlight the important role of diaspora as change makers and as mobilizers to respond to the current crisis that we see globally, and more beyond that to as key development actors in their countries of destination and their countries of origin. So it's with great pleasure that we get to have this discussion with all of you and with our amazing panelists. So we look forward to this being the beginning of a conversation that we will continue through the other events that we will be organizing together with our partners, including Ashoka. So thank you again.
Excellent. Thank you, Roberto. So let me tell you a little bit of Ashoka and why we're excited to be collaborating with the diaspora landscape. Right, we're not the first organization to join this landscape. This is something that's been going on for decades, and organizations like IOM and people like Grace have a lot of experience in how diasporas can be a force for good, a force for change and impact around the world. And Ashoka is if you haven't heard about it, is the largest network of social entrepreneurs in the world. In fact, it's the organization that began this idea of social entrepreneurship, or social entrepreneurs, which are people who, in most cases, run civil society organizations who are focused on social issues, whether it is around health or education, access to technology, human rights, civic participation, and many others. And they try to solve those issues, not just by providing services, but by actually changing the way those systems work. And so we have very different social entrepreneurs in our network of 4,000 fellows in over 80 countries. And they work on, some of them have created, they've invented banks, community banks and social currencies like in Brazil, or they've developed platforms like Wikipedia, and Jimmy Wells, who's a fellow, have been, developed solutions that engage a lot of people. We also have people who founded or work on sustainable development in the Amazon. There are many examples of this. And while Ashoka is very proud of the work of the fellows, there are 4,000 all over the world, we still think the world is moving in such a fast pace and changes are happening to us so fast. I mean, look at the world we're living in and what this pandemic is sort of making us realize. And so since this world is governed by change, we need to build a movement of change makers, which is a lot of what Ashoka is working on right now with different initiatives and strategies. And this is why we're building an initiative around diaspora networks, right? How do we engage diaspora networks around the world to together with the Ashoka fellows and allies in these different countries, build change-making initiatives and mobilize more people towards change. The Everyone a Changemaker world that Ashoka aims to build is nothing more than people feeling powerful to change and improve their surroundings together with other people. The fellows are a huge example of this all over the world, but we need to find new constituencies. And the diaspora world is the perfect example of this. We think they're natural change makers of sorts. If you mix the migrant experience of many of them having to move to a different place and make it in a completely different surrounding. So not just the entrepreneurial spirit in many ways, but the ability to be in two places at once, right? So you're from India and you live in the US and you're thinking about both places as you grow up. And the same happens to the next generations that grow up after you. So there's this sort of in-between advantage, ability to mobilize resources, ideas from two places at once, and empathy to understand the other and differences that really make it the sort of the ultimate change makers. And so we're building this strategy at Ashoka. We're at the beginning stage, so we'll welcome everyone to help us work with organizations like Africa 2.0 or IOM in building these partnerships. Right now, we're working on specifically working with diaspora groups or building diaspora groups in different cities around the world to co-create partnerships for change, mostly by connecting them with the social innovators that Ashoka has in their countries of origin. So if you're from Latin America and live in Madrid, we'll be creating a hub and a space for Latin American leaders in business, media, academia, research, civil society to work with us and connect them to the Ashoka Fellows and social entrepreneurs in Latin America to help them to become their thought partners, help them in co-create initiatives that can better the projects and the impact that these organizations in Latin America are having. So we're aiming to bridge these gaps between the world of diaspora and their countries of origin, so that we can move beyond, the conversation we usually have around diaspora, which is based on brain drain and the issues that causes to many countries, and how we can utilize intelligentsia and engage in the intelligence from the diaspora world into supporting social entrepreneurship. So I'll end there, and I'll give the space to Roberto. After the speakers present, we will have a couple of questions for them, and then there will be an open space for questions from the audience.
Thank you very much, Asier. I'm going to try to share a presentation, just a few slides, so don't get scared. I'm also talking to Peter. He says he's signed in, and it says Peter Kwok, but I don't see him on the list, so I don't know if maybe the organizers can double check. He does appear to be on the list. In the room, he sent me a screenshot. So
okay. If anything, yeah. Roberto, while you speak, send me are you in contact with them over email?
What's up? Okay,
WhatsApp? And if you can forward it to me, then I can try to help him while you're speaking.
Okay. I also see I can't share my screen, so I will just talk, and I will save you all the trouble of having to look at the slides. So basically, what I wanted to share with you all was a bit about our experience in this field with IOM. So IOM started working with diaspora back in the 1970s. As Asier mentioned, one of the main areas that we started working in was actually on the concept of brain gain, so trying to combat the brain drain that many countries were facing, especially post conflict countries. So, for example, Afghanistan, Iraq, and so we were helping to mobilize professionals in those diasporas to actually return temporarily or permanently to help rebuild their countries after the devastation of wars and other disasters. In that time, since the 1970s, IOM's work in this field has continued to grow. We've done over 150 diaspora mapping studies to understand better the profiles and the experiences, the skills, the resources, and the intentions and desires of different diaspora communities around the world. We've done these in collaboration with host governments and countries of origin. And based on this experience, we've actually developed a three-pillared strategy that looks to enable, engage, and empower transnational communities or diasporas as agents for development. And I think what we really want to focus on today is the last part of that, is the empowerment. And I'll discuss that a little bit more. We also have a handbook on developing a roadmap for engaging diaspora and development. This was developed in 2013 with the Migration Policy Institute. And this was, it's a handbook mostly for policymakers. So it's directed towards governments to help facilitate and, you know, create those opportunities and those spaces for diaspora communities to feel empowered and to actually be able to be the change makers that we know that they can be. An important step in creating these spaces for diaspora to work and actually push for positive social change happened a couple of years ago when, as an institution, we created a platform called iDiaspora. And this is actually a global platform that we've created to be a digital community for transnational communities, for diaspora communities across the globe, so they can, you know, connect with each other, collaborate with each other, learn from each other, to really be a community-driven space. So even though it is hosted by and currently managed by IOM, it's really meant to be a space for communities to meet and collaborate amongst each other. Because one of the things we've noticed is that diaspora organizations and communities and individuals are really great at mobilizing themselves and their communities and their resources, but often there isn't that link between different communities. So, for example, you know, the African diaspora, which Grace will be speaking about, and the Asian diaspora that Peter represents through the UK Chinese Professional Organization Federation. Sorry. Sometimes there, at least in our experience, we haven't seen, you know, that sharing of best practices, that space for communication, collaboration between these different communities. And so we wanted to create that, at least in a virtual space, and especially in this current context of the global pandemic, something that none of us have seen or foreseen. We were actually able to bring communities together in 3 events, global diaspora exchange events, one in English, one in Spanish, and one in French. And from these sort of initial exchange events, we've actually been able to forge this partnership with Ashoka and with other partners as well to actually try to bring some of those discussions that we had in the event into concrete actions. So linking Ashoka's social entrepreneurs with diaspora members that have skills, that have networks that can contribute to them. And now we want to continue that conversation with all of you to see how we can continue creating that space, especially within the ecosystem of social entrepreneurship, so that diaspora can take the leading role that they have the potential to, and recognize the important work that's already being done by these incredibly vibrant communities that, as Asier mentioned, manage to have incredible impact on countries of destination, on countries of origin, and pretty much everyone in between. So that's just a bit of an overview of IOM's experience and what we're trying to achieve today and moving forward. As I said in my opening remarks, we're hoping that this is the beginning of a conversation that will continue, so that we can work together to really strengthen our models of working in collaboration in this space. And I see Peter is online. Welcome, Peter.
Very happy to have you.
Thank you very much for bearing with me.
So, thank you. Glad to have you as well, Peter. But I'll not give you the floor, but I will pass the floor to Grace to tell us a bit about her experience leading Africa 2.0. In terms of what the organization's objectives are, the results achieved, and let us know about those experiences. And then after Grace speaks, we'll pass the word to Peter for your experience both in the UK and globally through the Diaspora Global Confederation. So, Grace, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Roberto. So I'll start by giving you a little bit of background regarding Africa 2.0. So Africa 2.0 is a pan-African civil society organization that is made up of emerging and established leaders from Africa and from the diaspora that share a collective vision and commitment to finding and implementing solutions that can lead to sustainable development of Africa. So what does Africa 2.0 do? So this is a network of about 600 emerging and established leaders on the continent and in the diaspora. And basically, there are two key areas that Africa 2.0 focuses on. One of them is on impact initiatives. And this is so the impact initiatives are like Startup Africa, which is supposed to drive entrepreneurship. Another important line of work that Africa 2.0 is focused on is on advocacy. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. So Africa 2.0 has 26 chapters, over 26 chapters across Africa and in the diaspora. And as the head of our chapter in Spain, my role includes identifying young African professionals, which to me is easy because I can identify them right inside my classroom. And also I've been living in Spain for a long time and offer them, talk to them about mentorship and getting them into leadership roles. And there's a reason behind this, because when Africa 2.0 was being founded, we looked at one of the major issues that had stopped Africa or had deterred development in Africa, and that was lack of leadership. And so colonization destroyed the leadership structures that were in place and created new ones that did not mirror the needs of Africans. In other words, colonization left Africa with a huge leadership vacuum. And so we can talk about introducing liberal markets or the liberal economy or democracy and liberal democracy. But if you don't have people to run those institutions, it's just not possible. So we thought that the best way to start with solving Africa's problems in the 21st century was to identify leaders and then take them through mentorship and also bring them together, create a space where these leaders could work together to accelerate the development of the continent. Now, that time coincided with the beginning of the millennium. And as we know, the new millennium marked a new dawn for Africa, as many African countries started registering notable economic growth and improvement in governance. But the new millennium also brought a rising tide of social, demographic, and ecological challenges that still loom large on Africa's political and economic landscape. One such challenge is how to turn the youth bulge population into a demographic dividend. Just to put that into perspective, according to various studies, Africa needs to create between 25 million to 30 million jobs every year to keep up with the millions of young people streaming into the job market every year. Africa's unprecedented population growth requires a different way of thinking. It cannot be business as usual and expect different results. In response to these mounting challenges, in Africa, Africa 2.0 was founded in 2010 to create a space where leaders on the continent and the diaspora could work together to accelerate the development of Africa. In this manner, the diaspora was recognized as an important constituency in developing Africa. And just to give you a sense of how big the African diaspora is, so there's different data out there, but on average, if we look at African diaspora in the Americas and Europe, we are talking of a population of about 200 million people. That is big. I went to Pakistan early this year, and to my surprise, I discovered a population of African diaspora in Pakistan. And that is not only limited to Pakistan. So you also find African diaspora in a number of countries, in South Asia and also in the Middle East. So the African Union, and I'm using this definition because that's what we also go by in our organization, defines the diaspora as peoples of African origin living outside the continent, irrespective of their citizenship, nationality, and who are willing to contribute to the development of the continent, development and building of the continent and the African Union. So what we realized in my organization is that there was a huge population that we could tap into to solve part of the challenges that we have on the continent. And our organization's approach was a little bit different in the sense that we did not try to engage other diaspora organizations from Africa, but rather having chapters in strategic locations around the world. And these chapters, because of their knowledge, because of their closeness to culture, in my case, I've been living in Spain for about 30 years now, longer than I have lived in Kenya, as a matter of fact. So we thought also, how can we use that wealth of knowledge, that proximity to act as a bridge between Africa and the diaspora. And so far, so the experiences that I was hoping to share with you was, for example, we ran in terms of advocacy. So one of the things we have been doing is to rebrand Africa. So from the year 2000, Africa, there have been a lot of changes going on in Africa, albeit in a mosaic manner, meaning that not all the countries are progressing at the same pace, but we can clearly see an upward trajectory in many areas. But the narrative, especially in the Western media, was still much the Africa of the 80s or the Africa of the 90s, and not the Africa of the 2000s, which still has to deal with poverty, which still has to deal with unemployment, parliament, which still has to deal with strife. But at the same time, we are starting to notice that with the leaders that have gone back to Africa and have started to investing in different areas, that we are trying to see some changes, even though some of these changes are still in a very nascent stage, but the change is there. And so we thought, you know, there's no empowerment without visibility, right? So what was it? What a better way than people who are in the diaspora, and based on the work that we do in diaspora, tell our story on what is happening in Africa, because that does have impact at various levels. All the way when people know where you come from, when people know your people, as we say in my country, you have a people, and who are your people? So when people know your people, it's easier for them to engage them in a different way. And so to stop looking at Africa as this place which is full of war and disasters, which to some extent it still is, but where there are also many success stories emerging. And so what we do, so for example, being here, hello?
You have to wrap it up because...
Yeah, I'm wrapping it up. Wrapping it up.
You have to go to Peter. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you know, so it's at the same time sharing the same information, sharing or spreading the same message regarding rebranding Africa, or in terms of entrepreneurship, the diaspora sharing skills with our chapters on the continent. Thank you very much. I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, Grace. Just a reminder to everyone who's attending this session, you can ask questions on the chat. For the panelists, there will be a space at the end for this. I've been trying to negotiate 5 extra minutes since we had some technical issues, but there's a session right after ours, so we won't have that opportunity. We'll be ending at 4:25, so we have to be, conscious of time, and reminding that everybody is doing the best they can to make this happening, and so we have just to have to adjust to the circumstances. So again, thank you for your patience, and we'll leave the floor to Peter now.
Thank you very much for your very kind invitation, Asier, Ashoka and IOM, and everyone. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Peter Kwok. I run the Global Diaspora Confederation and the UK Federation of Chinese Professionals in the UK. So apologies earlier on about the technical issue. A lesson to remind myself that as long as you keep trying, you will get there. And I'm here now. So I'm really relieved. So thank you so much. I missed the speech from Asier and Roberto, but being inspired by Grace, wonderful words, I think is really encouraging. But a very brief introduction about the UK Federation of Chinese Professionals, since we're talking about partnership today. So UKFCP is the umbrella organization for 4 professional associations in the UK: Scottish Chinese Professionals, SCP, London Chinese Professionals, LCP, Welsh Chinese Professionals, WCP, and Young Chinese Professionals, UK, YCP. So the reason I talk about that, because we do different things in different regions. But during this time, we have come together and do more great stuff. So in challenging times, there is a lot of uncertainty. It is understandable that people can become anxious. And however, when anxiety gets too unmanageable, it becomes fear, and fear leads to hate. And you can see the topic today I'm talking about is hate. Right, some xenophobia. So hate creates community tension. If the tension is not carefully managed, things can get quite violent and viral. But the diaspora communities are particularly vulnerable because of the language barriers, insufficient cultural understanding, lack of knowledge in how foreign system works, and limited social resources as well. So it is already difficult enough for many to manage their lives and work in non-pandemic situation. Hence, when it comes to more serious incidents such as hate, without knowing how to ask for help, diaspora communities often choose to stay quiet and suffer. A lot of people, although UK's FCP promotes, unite, support development, and promote global Chinese professionals in the UK, but we realize there are more than professionals who are experiencing similar issues, such as elderly, students, international students, and also from other communities, not only Chinese communities. Although apparently it seems to me that the Chinese community have been first hit by this kind of xenophobia issue, but later on many other diaspora communities also experience this too. So there is an idea of third-party reporting originated in Scotland for victims and witnesses to report to register physical centres to have their incidents recorded or report on their behalf. The third-party reporting centres are often community organisations that offer language support, cultural understanding, knowledge in how local system works, and local connections such as the police. However, this is a very typical example of how the public and the third sector partner with each other. And however, during the COVID-19 pandemic, victims and witnesses cannot travel and are required social distancing. Also, the closure of a lot of centres with a suspected rise in hate and racism required a new way of third-party reporting. Hence, the Scottish Chinese Professionals has introduced and established the first national virtual third-party reporting centre with Police Scotland. And later on, we expanded to the UK-wide with UK Federation of Chinese Professionals to establish the first national support centre for East and Southeast Asian communities. We now have over 60 centre reps, representatives in 20 cities from 14 countries of origin and can speak 22 languages. So centre reps from London, for example, can help our communities in Edinburgh, and Edinburgh communities can help Oxford. So it doesn't matter because we have the same operation mechanism. As we promote this idea further, England is also in process of training more people to set up third-party reporting centres for our communities in the UK. So you can see a good idea and showcasing the partnership can inspire many more good things coming after. But I think it is important that our diaspora communities' voices are heard, especially when they are needed the most. The diaspora who have the empathetic experience and have the local network can make this happen as they act as the medium. And this is how we can self-help and as an effective way to build community trust across the society. So while acting local is the foundation of community self-help, acting global is also important when problems get so major, like the pandemic or xenophobia. Hence, we have set up the Global Diaspora Confederation, GDC, the diaspora-led organization that brings together diaspora communities to achieve common goals and positive goals. So to sum up, in July, we have published with 230 diaspora federations and associations from across the world a joint statement in solidarity with those affected by xenophobia due to the COVID-19 pandemic. With a very kind support from IOM, especially Roberto, we have established the GDC to facilitate partnerships, initiatives, and dialogues amongst our diaspora member organizations, partners, and humanitarian actors. We are promoting and regenerating more trust and kindness, which I think are two very important qualities to uphold, especially when we mobilize tangible and intangible resources to combat COVID-19. So, yeah, this is what we have done so far, but very encouraging, but we'll continue to drive forward, such as creating more training academies to inspire diaspora organizations, strengthen their self-help mechanism, and also identified more diaspora challenges through online consultation. But thank you very much. I'll cut it short. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, again, for a wonderful introduction to the work of your organization. We'll be asking a couple of questions. So let Roberto ask his for speakers, and then I'll be asking a second one, and we open the space for people in the room, in the audience. We got a few questions from Dario. So just let you know, we've seen your questions. If anybody else wants to, also ask, feel free to do so in the chat. Roberto?
Yes, thank you, Asier, and thank you, Grace and Peter, for the excellent presentations, and congratulations to you both on the amazing work that you're doing. I think it's very important and timely, actually, that you both spoke about how diasporas are changing the narrative about Africa, in terms of xenophobia and the interactions between communities. So I think that's very timely for this fair that we're presenting at, in terms of changing narratives through the media, but also taking into account the voices of diaspora. So thank you for sharing those stories. My question is about that self-help, that self-mobilization that you both referred to. What can we, as, let's say, outside organizations in terms of IOM or Ashoka or other partners, what can we do that would support this kind of work, and what shouldn't we do? What are the things that it's better that organizations like us take a step back and give you the space to do the amazing work that you're already pushing forward? So what can we give you, and what space do you need, to put it short? Maybe Grace, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah. So I think, Roberto, thank you very much for the question. I think what other organization could do is to identify areas where could help build synergies with the organizations that are already working on these areas, and to listen to understand each other, not just to listen with a solution already on the table. I think, especially in this, in the times that we are living, it's really important to listen to understand, to understand what the needs of the diaspora are, and through that, trust can also be built among diaspora organizations and organizations back home. And at the end of the day, both parties can benefit, because the main objective should be to, at the end of the day, empower diaspora organizations or the diaspora, because an empowered diaspora contributes to development at home and back home. So everybody wins when that happens.
I think this is a wonderful question. Thank you, Grace. I just think, to be honest, as far as I know, IOM is doing a fantastic job. Without IOM, we haven't gone so far. We won't be able to get to this stage to actually talk to you all. And of course, our thanks to IOM and Ashoka for doing all the great work over the years. More importantly, at the moment, is about how to localize the global work that we do. No, there are offices, IOM or other organizations have local offices, but how to actually do local partnerships, where at the same time we can gather those local partnerships to make it globally heard. And I think this is something we want to explore. In terms of what not to do, to be honest, I haven't actually thought of anything. Please do as much as you can, and we will do the same at our end. I think the more we talk, the more we explore, the more positive things we bring out, the encouraging results we'll achieve at the moment, especially. So some of the good work, I think a lot of organizations have already seen, for example, from our joint statement. So let's do more of that, and let's meet more often, shall we say, virtually.
Excellent. Thank you both. I think those are very well received. But oops, somehow my video's off. Very well received comments. Thank you so much. And we definitely look forward to discussing more. Asier?
Thank you. Yes, so I'll make mine brief because we want to leave a couple of minutes for the audience. There's at least one question from Daria that we want to share with you. So for Grace and Peter, we're opening this space IOM at Ashoka essentially to give this so that Diaspora can actually lead the effort of building spaces for change making at home and back home. And let me use the example of Africa 2.0. You mentioned, Grace, the issue of leadership and working to find leaders in African diaspora to build or rebuild or create new institutions for the development of the continent. At Ashoka, we've developed a very rigorous methodology in finding the best leaders in social entrepreneurship and innovation. Now we're doing the same for change makers in a movement where everybody can participate. So how do you think that Ashoka can work with an organization, and social entrepreneurs can work around the world, can work with organizations like Africa 2.0 to build these first steps towards change making, right? What are if we're creating a diaspora group in the city like Madrid, what does that space need to look like? What are some of the characteristics, values, objectives that you think should happen?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. I think now more than ever, organizations like ours need to partner with other organizations. As I said before, we have a huge challenge in front of us in the 21st century that can either make or break Africa. But we want to turn this into Africa's century. So social entrepreneurship is something which is very important to us at Africa 2.0 because we want to create job makers, not job seekers. Ashoka does have a lot of experience around that. So if, Ashoka could support us with capacity building, in terms of capacity building, in terms of skills transfers, in terms of mentoring. And so our work in Madrid would be also to coordinate those spaces between the continent and here in Madrid, the continent, Madrid, and the community, the diaspora community in Madrid and Ashoka. And also Madrid is also very strategically placed because Madrid does have a lot of connection with Latin America. So when we look from where I sit, when I think about the African diaspora, Latin America comes to mind. And I know that Ashoka has a lot of experience there. So, there are lots of things we could do together, from studies, from transferring skills. And in that manner, when we would build partnerships that offer value proposition at home and back home. And I guess that's what we are also trying to develop better understanding on this panel discussion.
Excellent. Peter?
I would very much echo what Grace said. Skill transfer is so important at the moment. And although we're trying to do as much we can, everyone is doing their own part. Communication gaps needs to be closed. And the more we share the good practices between social entrepreneurs or the diaspora organizations, the better we can identify what exactly we can do regionally. For example, social enterprise, Ashoka has entrepreneurs, what they're doing in South America. And while we have diaspora organizations based in South America, what can they do together to do more for our vulnerable communities? But at the same time, at the global level, what we can offer as a structured, organized program that can continue to inspire many more social entrepreneurs to take up their leadership in regionally as well as globally. So this is what I'm thinking. Skill transfer, skill learning, training is so important. But at the same time, although it is not, the COVID-19 is not very something to be pleasant about, but the more we see there are social distancing, the more we see people are, what I mentioned about xenophobia, there are a lot of people wanting to come together, like us today, to do something positive. I think we need to, I think Ashoka is very good at that as well, having like a fellowship program, having celebrations of people coming together, and not just on social entrepreneurship. So something that we can explore and to take things further.
Excellent. Thank you very much. There are two questions. I see one for Roberto and one for Grace. I'm gonna talk about the question for Grace, since I see Roberto more often, and I can imagine some of his answers. So we're gonna give this space to Grace, since that's our priority for diaspora organizations to lead the effort. So Grace, Dario is asking you, is Africa 2.0 also engaging in counter narratives in countries of residence as part of its advocacy campaign? In Europe, we need to raise awareness of the contributions made by African diaspora and diaspora in general.
Oh, Dario, thank you very much for the question. I couldn't agree with you more. Part of the challenge regarding getting the narrative of Africa right out here has been not having enough African voices to tell their stories. And also in academia, there's really little serious studies out there talking about the contribution of diaspora in Europe. There's a lot more when it comes to the US. Or the Americans, but really little, especially in modern times. So how about, that's something that could be done, a serious study to look at, how many Africans are here or in the diaspora in Europe, and what are they contributing to the development? Because when a similar study was done in the US, it was surprising to see the number of medical doctors and the number of Nigerian medical doctors and Nigerian with university degrees, and their specific contribution to developing the US and also back home. And so I think that would help us also to in telling our story.
Excellent. All right. So there are more questions from Martin and Warda, but we have no time left, I'm afraid. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. It was a wonderful conversation. We'll have more of these sessions for sure. There'll be a summary and information on the idiaspora.org platform, which is the platform run by the IOM on diaspora engagement. There'll also be more information on Ashoka's site, ashoka.org/diaspora networks. I think the session is recorded, if I'm not wrong, so we'll be sure to send you a link if you're interested afterwards. And we hope to see you soon in our next conversations and maybe see some of your faces. Take care.
Thank you.
If I could just add quickly, we did answer Daria's question, at least for me, in writing, and also you can find more links to more information in the chat for, I think, all the different organizations, except Africa 2.0, so maybe if Grace can throw something in there quickly, you can find more information about everything we spoke about on those websites. Thanks again.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.